I've been using the Edge blood tests for the last probably 4 or 5 years on and off to measure certain biomarkers. Usually for me, it's just a kind of general check-in like every 6 months just to see where all my levels are, make sure there's nothing that kind of looks a bit odd that I think I need to get checked up on. Quick one, huge favour to ask. So this year we're trying to improve everything that we're creating and we don't ask for much, but one thing that would help us hugely would be if you could just hit that subscriber button. Thank you. I concentrate on long distance triathlons, mainly the Ironman distance, which obviously involves quite a lot of training throughout the week. So generally I train sort of 25 to 30 hours a week. So it's pretty important to stay on top of all the recovery, making sure that stuff like my iron levels are good, that there aren't any weird things going on in my body that I might not be quite aware of. It's quite easy when you're training that much to push something a little bit too far and not necessarily be aware when you're generally feeling quite tired of like, is that just training tiredness? Is there something else going on? So yes, I've been using the Edge blood tests for quite a while and they've been super helpful for me to just, like I said, keep that regular checkup of where my body's at. I've had some like extra ones on top of the sort of every 6 month ones when I have been feeling maybe a little bit more fatigued or I've had a run of sessions that haven't gone very well to just check, is there something else going on? So yeah, they're like super quick, super easy. They get sent to your home so you don't have to go to a doctor's and get a blood test done. So nice, easy packaging. So you can see here you have like your little label to put back when you send it back and the little form to fill in just to say sort of what time you did it, etc. So they can correlate that. Nicely laid out. So these are the little finger prick things and the 2 test tubes to fill up. So always do it standing up to help with blood flow. Pick your finger, I've obviously cleaned it, I've swabbed it with alcohol. Almost there. Boop, 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 boop. Got my 2 tubes filled up. Just have to do a little bit of inverting like this, just to make sure the blood's not stuck. And then put them in the pouch. Right, it's all packaged up, back in a little box. And I just have to go pop that in the post box and then hear back in a couple of days. So the main biomarkers I've been looking at, I get one of the sort of female athlete endurance tests, which has a range of biomarkers on it. So there's a whole load of biomarkers that are sort of standard across the endurance tests, things like cortisol, hematocrit, red blood cell count, white blood cell count, lots of things like that that give quite a good marker of your general kind of health and how your body's reacting. There's then the option to add any extra biomarkers you want in as well, so you can like really personalize the test. So if you know that there's either a particular marker you're worried about, or you think that there's something you want to investigate a bit more, you can add extra ones on. So yeah, other things that I find quite interesting are stuff like your vitamin D level. Again, like over winter, that's something that I like to keep an eye on to make sure that I'm not dipping too low, because that could be quite dangerous. And other things like your testosterone levels, again, just seeing kind of how that reacts like as you're training. And then obviously the things like your cortisol, so like how's that, like, are you training too much potentially? That can sometimes be a marker for that. So yeah, lots of different markers that I look at. I think there's about 21 that I look at overall. And yeah, they've been pretty standard over the last sort of 4 or 5 years of me testing. So I've got quite nice like trends across the time of how they've changed. But yeah, as I've got that nice kind of block of data over the last few years, it's also quite easy to see when something looks a bit off, which is also quite nice. Right, so results come in, super easy. You get a notification, which is nice, so you know exactly when they come in. I can then go onto my app and you get the kind of overall view to kind of say this is your overall results. So you can see here it's saying most of my results are in the normal range. It then gives you the summary from the doctor. So it's saying here, my one marker that is not looking as healthy as it could do is my testosterone levels. It's normal for testosterone levels to drop with age. Really nice when I've got my birthday coming up. Good reminder. But it's also saying as a woman, like low levels can also be caused by some of your contraception. I'm actually not on the pill, so that's not for me. But it's also saying there's other things that can cause that drop. It's also saying it could be a sign of early menopause. I really hope not. There's lots of things within that it's saying these are some of the causes. It could also just be like a bit of an anomaly. So it could have been because I did this test like post-training. So it could have been actually just post-run, your levels drop a bit. So anyway, it gives you the recommendation with that because it's a marker that's out of the ordinary to maybe do another test sooner than I would normally. But you can then also see, you can then look at the overview of all of my other markers. So I'm just scroll through those. You can kind of see they're all in the healthy range. In those, you can then go in. So let's see what's quite an interesting one. I can then look at my trend back through all of the other tests that I've done. So you can see here, this is where I'm at on hematocrit. That was then back in January, and then you can go back through the years all the way back to some of my other tests, and you can see like how much it changes. And you can also just compare to other people that are my age. Anyway, so there's like lots of comparisons and things you can then dig into the detail of, and it also then gives you the references of it, and you can usually go back in. Yeah, so then on each one of them as well, you can then click into them and it tells you what is that marker, what is it there for, what are some of the like foods that you can find it in. So I guess if one of your markers is a bit low, it kind of helps give some information on what else you can use that for. So yeah, super helpful, super easy to look at. And like I said, I like that with it, I've then got all of my trends that I can go back and look at. I can keep track of like all my various markers. Testosterone is actually a new one for me that's low, so that is something I will get checked out. Quite often the marker that I get out of range is cortisol, which is like the sort of stress one. But often that is something you see quite a lot with endurance athletes, that something like cortisol, or like just someone who trains, depending on like when you trained, when you do the test, that can quite often be like a little bit higher than sort of normal, just because that's your body's response to it. Other one that I often get is my luteinizing hormone, which initially I was a bit panicked when this one came out, because That's one of the hormones that actually can be linked to some of the RED-S symptoms of like, actually you've got like poor energy availability, you're not recovering well. It's quite an important one for like your general menstrual health and stuff. But yeah, I dug into it a bit more, and it just seems that just seems to be one of the markers that for me doesn't really sit in the normal range, but isn't necessarily an anomaly. So I guess that's the other thing, like whilst obviously with all the data and stuff that these guys have, there's like the normal range, but as with everything, there are like some people you just sit a little bit outside like the normal range. So it's a bit like, I guess my Oura ring, like my HRV is very different to Jack's HRV, but it's normal for me. So yeah, so having now tracked that for quite a long time, it's clear that that's just, my levels are just around that. It doesn't seem to actually affect how I train. It doesn't seem to be a bigger issue. But yeah, there's a few things. I guess the main things that I like to keep an eye on are a lot of the sort of general markers. I think like I talked about before, like stuff like vitamin D, to make sure that some of those like key things that help with sort of recovery, bone health, everything that helps with like injury prevention and trying to get better. And then there's a whole lot of other things that are then just quite interesting, stuff like red blood cell count, white blood cell count. They also have some of the thyroid, like a thyroid hormone measure. So there's quite a lot of things on there. And most of it, again, it's not necessarily particular things I'm looking out for. It's more like the general trends. Has anything changed massively? Is there something like this time with testosterone that is different that then I should probably look at? Yeah, so if you're interested in getting some blood tests, then if you go to sportsbloodtests.co.uk, or if you Google Edge blood test, it comes up. And on there, you'll see they've got a kind of general kits. So there's ones like triathlon related, run related, male, female, or you can actually just do your own custom kit. And yeah, if you've got any questions about it, obviously feel free to drop me a message on Instagram, and hopefully I can answer it or point you to someone that can, or in the comments below.